Ivan was a man of logic, a night security guard at the Museum of Archaeology in Moscow, who scoffed at superstitions and ghost stories. He was a practical Siberian, content with his quiet, solitary work and the generous salary that came with it. For him, the shadows of the museum held nothing but history, silent and still. But on a frigid January night, under the fury of a howling blizzard, a delivery arrived that would shatter his world of reason. A new artifact, a black box unearthed from the frozen Siberian steppes, was brought into the main hall. It was crafted from ancient, weathered wood, its surface covered in cryptic Slavic symbols, an archaic Russian script that Ivan couldn't decipher. It sat there, an ominous monolith in the center of the hall, awaiting the curator's inspection in the morning. The first few hours of his shift passed in predictable silence. Ivan sat comfortably in his office, the warmth of his hot tea a stark contrast to the storm raging outside his window. The security screens flickered before him, showing empty, dimly lit halls. But as the clock struck midnight, an unsettling sound pierced the quiet hum of the building. It was faint at first, almost imperceptible, a soft, rhythmic scratching, seeming to emanate from the main hall. Ivan leaned forward, straining his ears. The sound was undeniable. A chill, unrelated to the winter cold, crept down his spine. Setting his mug down, Ivan grabbed his heavy-duty flashlight and left the relative safety of his office. His footsteps echoed as he moved toward the source of the noise. As he stepped into the vast main hall, his eyes immediately fixed on the black box. It was vibrating, a slight but constant tremor that sent ripples of unease through him. He approached with caution, the beam of his flashlight dancing over the strange symbols. The scratching grew louder, more distinct. It was the unmistakable sound of fingernails clawing desperately at the wood, but from the inside. "Impossible," Ivan muttered in Russian, his breath fogging in the cold air. "It's just an old box." He told himself it was the wind, the old building settling, anything but the horrifying truth his senses were screaming at him. Just as he was about to dismiss it, the scratching intensified to a frantic frenzy, and a putrid odor began to seep from the cracks in the wood, the unmistakable stench of decay and death. It filled the hall, thick and suffocating. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The scratching, the shaking, the smell all vanished into an absolute, unnerving stillness. Ivan retreated to his office, his heart hammering against his ribs, but the peace he usually found there was gone. He couldn't focus. Every time his gaze drifted to the monitor displaying the main hall, he could have sworn he saw the box shift just a fraction of an inch. Outside, the Siberian wind howled like a mournful wolf through the skeletal branches of the frozen birch trees. At precisely 3 in the morning, the darkest hour before dawn, the power cut out, plunging the entire museum into suffocating blackness. The emergency lights failed to kick in. Cursing under his breath, Ivan fumbled for his flashlight again and made his way to the basement to check the old generator. As he worked on the sputtering machine, a new sound reached him from above the heavy, deliberate thud of footsteps echoing from the main hall. Panic flared in his chest. He scrambled to fix the generator, and as the lights flickered back to life, he bolted up the stairs, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm of pure terror. When he burst into the main hall, his blood ran cold. The black box was open. Its heavy, ornate lid lay on the marble floor, splintered and shattered, as if by an immense force. Peering inside, he saw nothing but a deep, inky void that seemed to drink the light, a darkness so absolute it felt alive. But what truly froze him in place was what he saw on the floor. A trail of wet, bare footprints led away from the desecrated box. His eyes followed the trail, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. They led directly to the open doorway of his own office. With a sense of dread so profound it felt like a physical weight, Ivan turned slowly, trembling uncontrollably. There, lurking in the shadows of the entrance, stood a tall, skeletal figure, draped in rotting, tattered shrouds. Its face, it had no face. Where features should have been, there was only a swirling, black abyss, a miniature of the void within the box. The ghastly figure began to shamble toward him, its wet feet slapping against the polished floor, leaving a dark, glistening trail. With each agonizingly slow step, a choked, moaning sound escaped from its formless head, a sound of eternal suffering that echoed through the cavernous hall. Ivan opened his mouth to scream, but only a strangled gasp escaped. He tried to run, to flee, but his legs were rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a fear more ancient and powerful than any he had ever known. All he could do was stand there, a helpless statue of terror, and watch as the faceless nightmare crept ever closer, its shadowy arms beginning to reach for him. When the first of the morning staff arrived with the rising sun, they found Ivan. He was huddled in a far corner of the main hall, his once dark hair now as white as the Siberian snow, his eyes wide and vacant, staring into a distance no one else could see. He was alive, but his mind was gone. He could no longer speak, and he did not even remember his own name. Of the black box there was no sign. It had vanished completely, leaving behind only a shattered lid, and a man's broken sanity, as if it had been nothing more than a shared nightmare. But even now, some nights, when the wind howls around the old museum walls, the new guards whisper of strange sounds. They say that if you listen closely enough in the dead of night, you can still hear the faint, desperate sound of scratching, and the soft, wet slap of footsteps walking in the dark.